You're listening to the Just Go Bike podcast. We're all about the culture of bicycling just for the fun of it. Your host, Kathy Murphy from the Morphology Podcast and Andrea Parrott from ParrotTalk are joined by a wide variety of guests each week that delve into the social side of cycling. With tales from RAGBRAI Nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile. And now, here are your hosts, Murph.
Hey, that's me.
And AP.
And that's me. Hi, Murph.
Hey there.
I feel like I just saw you.
Well, you did. We just got back from the Iowa Bike Summit, which was held in Council Bluffs, Iowa.
That's right. And it was a whirlwind of a day in the best way possible. This event was put on by the Iowa Bicycle Coalition, and it was jam-packed from start to finish.
Oh, such a cool day. Yeah, from start to finish, like you said. Let's cover just a few of the highlights.
Yeah, that sounds great. So, first of all, we got up early and we had a great breakfast at the hotel.
Yes, we
and
did.
Plenty of coffee for me and other drinks for Murph.
Rockstar.
Yep. Whole milk for some reason. Anyway, okay, so one of my favorite sessions was from our friend Dan McKay, and it was on navigating insurance and different legal issues. And so I guess Dan wasn't the only one speaking. There were a couple of other speakers there along with him, but yeah. So Dan is with McKay Insurance, and he's an insurance professional, and they really specialize in event insurance. So he really broke it down in simple terms for the audience and made it easy to understand, not just about like insurance that an event or a nonprofit would want, but even for I took some notes for myself personally. So it was really interesting.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yep.
So,
yeah. He was part of a panel that included Joe Benish from Ingenuity Company, and then also our friend Jim Freeman, the bike lawyer. Super informative, and they talked in simple terms like you mentioned. I thought, when we sat down, I'm like, oh my gosh, insurance and lawyers, I don't know how this is going to go. But it was definitely one of my favorite sessions as well.
Yeah, maybe just because I was surprised at how much I learned. I mean, I expected to learn in every panel that we attended, but yeah, it was really cool. So I just want to give a quick shout out to McKay Insurance for any of you out there who run a bike club or a team. Maybe just drop him a line and see if, maybe there's something that you could need to be covered for that you're not. It's actually pretty inexpensive to cover your butt. So
yeah, I agree.
Hashtag not sponsored, but yeah.
Yeah. Hashtag not sponsored, but also I will be giving Dan McKay a call because I'm curious about some things that I think that he could help with. So anyway, another session that I really liked was, I think his name was Carl Saxon, but he brought the MPO data bike and shared how they use the bike and all the information that comes from riding that bike around on trails.
Yeah, it was so freaking cool. It was like the Google Street View car, but a bike. And it's basically an e-bike with cameras attached to it, along with a GPS device. So when someone rides it along a trail, it can gather data about the trail.
Yeah, and I believe he did say, like you said, the Google car, that they do take that data and send it to Google. So Google uses it, which I thought was pretty cool.
It's freaking cool. And they measure things like the quality of the sidewalk and the type of pavement and how it's held up over time and just other things like that maybe I wouldn't even think about wanting to measure over time, but it got really detailed.
Yeah. And the Des Moines NPO, they do rent the bike out to other NPOs or communities. So I guess, if you're listening to this and your community might benefit from some really interesting trail data, check out the Des Moines NPO. I bet you can find the resource on how to get a hold of that bike.
Yeah, and speaking of our favorite presentations, Murph and I also got to speak at the Iowa Bike Summit, and we talked about building community using social media, so something we're pretty well familiar with.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was fun to showcase all that we do on the podcast and, of course, what you do with RAGBRAI. And when you have a bike-focused audience, it makes it even more fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was just a good time. We had a fun time making a word cloud, like a live word cloud about what word you think of when you hear the word RAGBRAI. So little word association. You can see the results of that on our RAGBRAI Facebook page. But yeah, it was just fun, and we laughed a little bit. We learned a lot, I hope. And if you think that you'd like Murph and I to come speak at your event, then drop us a line at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com, and maybe we can make it happen. Who knows?
Oh, heck yeah. We are crowd pleasers for sure.
Yeah. So there are also some great panel sessions with some of our friends, including Ben Gonerman from Shimano, Rose Willie from Villa Rosa, Scott Matter from the Dream Team, and Sonny Jimenez from Major Taylor, Iowa.
I mean, basically the entire day was really, really good. Very informative, entertaining. It got, I don't know, it kind of was, after you go to a conference, you get kind of jazzed up about stuff, which I don't know if I ever lose my jazz for bikes, but it was really good. And then, of course, we ended the day before a group bike ride. The keynote speaker was Denise Mueller, and I'm going to do capital W, capital O, capital W on this one.
Yeah. So if you don't know Denise Mueller, you should, because she is the fastest person in the entire world. She gave us a deep dive into how she became the fastest human on a bicycle.
We're talking 183.9 miles per hour on a bicycle. You're probably shaking your head like, what? Is that possible? Yes, it is. If you haven't seen her break the world record, you can Google Denise Mueller and see the video. I think it's like 4 to 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
But she gave us a really good deep dive and connected it back to community, in that you can't do something like that just by yourself. You need to have a good community, a lot of support, and it was just a great way to end the day.
Yeah, and I didn't know before that she had originally broken the record as the woman's record, and then 2 years later came back and broke it for man or woman, any human at all. So that was really cool to learn. And she's an awesome public speaker, so it was just fun to be able to attend that. It was just a great day all around, and thanks so much to Luke and the team for including us. We really appreciate that.
Yes, yes. And this conference, like we said, is put on by the Iowa Bicycle Coalition. It can be attended by any bike-minded people. So whether you're a planner for your community or whether you just like bikes. So keep your eye on the calendar. They have it every year. It's called the Iowa Bike Summit. I think you can go to their website, iowabicyclecoalition.org, and see the information from this year. So then you can maybe put on your calendar for next year. So,
yeah.
Well, let's get to today's episode.
Yeah. So speaking of today's episode, it is a Parrot Talk.
Yay.
So I talked all day yesterday, and I got to talk all day today. So I'm happy. Today I have something a little different for you, and I'll go into it more in a few minutes. But basically, I read a poem from my friend Steve Rose, who is a professor emeritus at Simpson College. And then I kind of dig down into the mailbag because we received some actual snail mail.
Yeah, and gifts. It was so cool, which I know you're going to talk about it. You're going to talk about it in a second. So should we get to it?
Let her roll. This is AP, and that's right. That means this is Parrot Talk. Normally on a Parrot Talk, I will read through a historic Des Moines Register article that John Karras or Donald Call wrote, or maybe delve into a historical topic. But today, I have something a little special for you. I have 2 different items that I'm going to read to you that I thought were interesting and hopefully entertaining. So let's dive right in. First of all, I received a poem from my friend Steve Rose, who is a professor emeritus at Simpson College. Steve is a longtime RAGBRAI rider, and he rides with Team Skunk, one of our oldest RAGBRAI teams. So maybe you've seen Team Skunk out there on the road. Shout out to them. So this poem is written from the perspective of a retired man. So it may sound a little weird coming from me, but I really love the content and I really love the topic. And I really love that Steve sent this to us. So I'm going to read it. So just sort of bear that in mind. Poem is called RAGBRAI Reminiscing by Steve Rose. I started riding RAGBRAI with Team Skunk in 2010 after an elbow accident made me hang up my tennis racket and take up biking as my primary recreation. I was able to complete 10 rides with the Skunks through 2023. Bike accidents while training kept me out of 2, and of course, there was the COVID year, 2020. This year, I had to do it again. You see, the camaraderie of the group, much more than the ride itself, made me hunger to ride again, even though a quadruple bypass surgery, aka cabbage, in all caps, made it clear that riding only one day, the shortest one, was the most prudent, or least foolhardy, decision. So my saintly spouse dropped me off in Mount Pleasant to camp with the Skunks that Friday night. A fear of being a Johnny-come-lately disappeared within a few minutes as I caught up with friends I hadn't seen for a year or more. Hanging out under our tent, I talked and listened until bedtime. Among those conversations, 3 professors, 2 math from SUNY schools, and a philosophy/ag professor from Iowa State, carried out a spirited and amicable discussion about the ethics involved in devising computer programs. I chose to keep my mouth shut and listen. That night, I camped with 2 friends of mine, young enough to be my sons, who I wrangled into sharing their tent so I didn't have to bring one just for one night. Robert is a middle school teacher. Joel is an Assembly of God preacher, so nicknamed Teach and Preach. Like middle schoolers ourselves, we stayed up until midnight talking about many things, but mainly music, primarily the band Wilco and Billy Bragg. Our 5 a.m. wake-up call came early, and I'm sure Preach and Teach didn't rest very well with this old man getting up 3 times to go pee. Me, I didn't much care. I was so giddy to be among such folks. On the bus ride home, I sat with a friend I'd made on the ride in 2019. Evan and I became great buddies then, but that friendship was soured after some certain online forums where we disagreed politically. We let that slide, and our conversation about folks we loved, books we'd read, and movies we'd seen made the bus ride home go by in a click. Of what about the ride? It was fine. I'm exceedingly slow anymore. Average about 10 miles an hour, even though I train religiously. I chatted up a few folks, but mainly I just rode, even foregoing the call of nature and ample cornrows. My goal was to be not the last skunk who arrived at our meeting place. I wasn't even second to last. Perhaps because I skirted the towns we passed through and snacked on rations I brought myself so I could make better time. I achieved that goal. Once gathered, the skunks rode en masse to the dipping point, chanting, "Skunk, skunk, skunk." I skipped the dipping since I hadn't done the whole route, but it didn't bother me, partly because I got a great bowl of ice cream. You see, I was with my people. For an old man, that's plenty. As for hills, to quote some skunk mottos, what hills? Tails up? And again, that was by Steve Rose. I just really love that piece because it speaks to what's wonderful about RAGBRAI. It's not just the biking, it's the community and the old friends and how you can sort of drop what divides us in day-to-day life and just be united in the love of cycling and being outdoors and staying up late under the stars together. Okay, the second thing that I have to share with you today is something really, really cool that Murph and I received in the mail the other day. And we love receiving fan mail. We love hearing from you because it helps us understand who we're talking to and that we're not just sort of podcasting into a void. We love the community of people that listen to Just Go Bike podcast, and we love hearing about your RAGBRAI stories or stories about what your life is like. So this was a surprise that we received in the mail. It was actually sent to the Des Moines Register office, and luckily my badge still works to get in the door there. So I was able to go retrieve it the other day. If you would like to send us any mail, I will say our address at the end of this podcast. Wow, it was sure a fun treat. And it made us feel really special. This is a package and a letter from Terry from Whitby, Ontario, Canada. And how cool is that to receive a package from Canada? So I'm just going to really quick read the note that was attached along with that package because I think it was interesting and maybe you'll find some entertainment from it. Dear Andrea and Murphy, he used our formal names, first of all, which is great. It says, just wanted to send you a note expressing my gratitude for such an amazing podcast. I listen weekly and especially enjoyed the additional episodes during RAGBRAI showcasing the coordinators, staff, and community support for this wonderful event. I was not able to make it to Iowa this year, but I am hoping to be there next year for RAGBRAI LII, or RAGBRAI 52 if you want to say it less awkwardly than I just did. In planning for this, I began to look for a front-loading cargo bike that will allow me to bring my current service dog, Tessa. Tessa refuses to ride in a trailer like her older sister, Molly, so cargo bike it will be. Andrea, I'm not sure if you have a connection to the fire service with a family and friends serving on a volunteer or municipal fire department, but I would be interested to hear about it in your podcast. Please find enclosed a Whitby fire patch for your collection. Whitby is a small town approximately 20 miles east of Toronto. I will attach a photo of my patch collection, and I used it for teaching children and seniors how to stop, drop, cover their face, and roll. So far, it is only the first responder departments that I have worked with, about 80 patches. Also, please find some rope key fobs for your bike and car keys. I make them as longer lanyards so other firefighters will be able to get their rescue knife out of their pocket in the extreme heat of a fire. It also acts as a lanyard when working at height. The knot is the same one we use for a lifeline messenger when you need to throw a rope to someone in distress, just a lot smaller. Keep up the great work. Best regards, Terry. And if you'd like to look up Terry and his service dog, find them on Facebook as Molly the Fire Dog. And Terry included a couple pictures, and they are fantastic. I'll be including them on the Instagram post about this episode of Just Go Bike. It includes Terry with his Dalmatian Molly in her trailer, and he's wearing a matching Dalmatian jersey. It's so cute. Then there's a picture of Molly with a patch blanket with all the different patches from the different fire departments. Then there's also a picture of him and Molly at the fire hall. So it's so freaking cute, and I can't wait to see pictures of Tessa as well. Thank you, Terry, for the patch. I love it so much. I think next year, when we come to the RAGBRAI, we're going to make a little shadow box of all the different fire department patches that I've received so far. I have this one from, I hope I said Whitby correctly, the Whitby Fire Department, but I also have one from Ruston, Louisiana, and the Roseville, Swan Creek, Smithshire Fire District, which is in Illinois. So they're so cool, and it's so freaking awesome to have these patches. I just want to kind of show them off when we get to the expo. To answer Terry's question about why I really love fire departments, I actually don't have any family members that are in a fire department. I do have a couple neighbors that work for the fire department when I lived at home in Coralville. But more it's that I really appreciate the hard work that they do. Obviously, they're first responders. Obviously, they put themselves in the line of danger all the time. And dealing with a fire is a big fear of mine. I never wanted, no one ever wants to have a fire at their home, but gosh, it's just one of my scariest fears to wake up in the middle of the night to a fire. So I just appreciate what they're doing. But beyond that, on the pre-ride, we tour all the RAGBRAI communities that we'll pass through for any given year. And as we come to the communities, nearly all of them, or many of them, I guess is a better way to say it, many of them have fire departments, and they'd open up the doors for us, and they would usually host us either just to use the bathroom or maybe with some snacks or whatever it may be. But it's always just a fantastic way to promote the town and something really beautiful about the town, like the fire truck, because it will say the name of the community on the side of it. It's a nice way to show our appreciation for first responders as well as show off the town. And it's also a really fantastic photo op. Sometimes they'll let me sit in the truck, and sometimes, if I'm lucky, they'll let me run the siren, which is really cool. It just sort of brings attention. It's a fun way to bring attention and hype and excitement to the pre-ride, and hopefully let some of the town members know that we are here, we're touring, we're interested in their community. We can't wait to come back and just sort of, I guess, ring the bell, for lack of a better phrase, about how cool RAGBRAI is and how exciting we are to come to their community. So I guess that's sort of it in a nutshell. Plus, fire trucks are cool. Plus, all the firefighters I've met have been super, super nice and friendly and interesting to talk to. And it's so cool to learn about how each and every fire department is set up a little bit differently depending on the needs of their community and their funding and their staffing levels. Some will have water rescue, some will have off-road prairie rescue, some will have tanker trucks, some will have like completely custom trucks that they built themselves. Some will have trucks that they have bought secondhand usually from New York or from the East Coast for whatever reason. And some of them were built right here in Iowa, like the Breda fire truck factory at Toyne. So it's just really cool to learn about a part of our community that maybe other people don't know that much about. And they're very, very instrumental in small town Iowa, not just in putting out fires, which is the obvious thing, but they're also a lot of times the first people that show up to an emergency scene and can do things like CPR or whatever first aid might be possible. I know they also do really sad things like looking for people who are missing in a lake or in a burning building or things like that. So I just really appreciate the work that they do. And I really love getting to meet these cool people all across Iowa and learn about how they're all just a little bit different and what they do for their communities. I also should give a shout out to Indianola because they also gave me a police department patch. So that's my first police department patch that I received on the pre-ride last year. So those guys are awesome. I'm not totally just fire truck, but they don't let you usually ride in the cop cars unless you've done something wrong. So, there's that. So I look forward to learning what the 2025 route is and who I might meet along the way. Also want to give a shout out to all the amazing fire departments and the people therein that I met during RAGBRAI 2024. And if you look on the Facebook page, you'd have to search for it probably, but I do have a collection of photos of me in fire trucks. And I think when I have a little bit of time here in the off season, I will create that same photo gallery over on Just Go Bike so that you can see it. There's a bunch of pictures of myself, but also with Murph and probably a couple of siren videos and stuff like that. I also forgot to mention the keychains that Terry enclosed. They're so freaking cool. And Murph and I put them on our bikes already and one on our keychain each. But they are literally maybe 1-inch round knots that are made out of lanyard cord. So if you were in an emergency, you could unravel them and use the cord for whatever purpose you needed. It was a really cool gift that he gave us. I don't know if he sells them or not as far as like online, but go check him out on Facebook at Molly the Fire Dog, and maybe he'll have a picture there. Otherwise, I'll post a picture of them along with this podcast episode. If you would like to send us anything, obviously we would never expect that, in no way require that. This podcast is for free, and we do it because we love the community and we love RAGBRAI. But if you should so desire, please do send it to the RAGBRAI office. We are at 501 Scott Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa, 50309. If you have anything that you'd like to email us as far as something you might think would be a good topic for a Parrot Talk in the future, or someone who you think might be interesting for us to interview on the podcast, you can email us at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com, and Murph and I will get back to you as soon as we can. Thanks for listening to Parrot Talk today. I had so much fun squawking at you, and I'll catch you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to the Just Go Bike podcast. Murph and AP will be back next week. In the meantime, check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and X, formerly known as Twitter. And if you would like to contact Murph and AP with a comment about the podcast, or maybe you have a topic in mind, email them at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. Until next time,
Just go bike!
Theme song by Ryan Steer, logo by Suzanne Milosevic, produced by Kathy Murphy, social media by Andrea Parrott, intro by Pumpkin. Until next time, just go bike.